Indeed, with Instant Match, a hiring tool instantly delivering to businesses a list of candidates whose resume on Indeed match the job description. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit. I'm Melissa Harris-Perry. You're still with The Takeaway as we are wrapping up our She Elections. I'm still here with Debbie Walsh, Director of the Center for American Women in Politics at Rutgers University. No African-American woman has ever been elected governor of any U.S. state, and that is going to remain true here in 2022, despite the fact that there were a record number of black women vying for the position of governor in Iowa, in Georgia. Talk to me a bit about that continued reality.
Yeah, that is a frustration. And we did have a record number of black women nominees this time for governor. When Stacey Abrams was nominated last time for governor, she was the first ever and the only. This time we saw more, but still none getting elected. I think the race that folks thought there was the most potential was the Stacey Abrams race in Georgia. And the challenge there is she was running as a challenger. And that's really hard. And it was a year where you saw in the Senate returns and the gubernatorial returns where, again, the challenger on the Senate side underperformed. Reverend Warnock was clearly doing better than Stacey Abrams was, and he was the incumbent. So it is a real frustration, and it has been a challenge, and we need to see more black women, more women of color nominated, running for these statewide offices. You know, what we're looking at in terms of these record number of women governors, there will only be one Latina serving, Michelle Lujan Grisham from New Mexico, no Asian American Pacific Islander women, no Native American women, no black women this time. And so it is still the challenge that is left out there. And, you know, when you think about it, when these women are running for chief executive, they are really disrupting that image of what a top leader looks like. We've never elected a woman president of the United States. It's been very tough getting these women elected as governor. And I think it is because, in part, this disruption of our image of who leads at that very highest level. The image is white and male. And so it is doubly hard for women of color when they try to break through, because it is breaking through in more than one way. It is breaking through on gender and breaking through on race.
You know, we are still at the very early hours of being able to analyze any kind of exit poll results. So if there are ways that we saw women show up in 2022 in these midterm races as voters, that was at all surprising, or if what we really just saw was a kind of return to relatively normal partisanship where Republican women voted about like Republican men and that Democratic women voted about like Democratic men.
Yeah, we still have to, as you say, Melissa, we still have to really dig into some of this exit poll data. It's going to get weighted and reweighted. I've seen some very early numbers that show that among the voters who were backing Democrats, 44% said abortion was the top issue for them. So we're going to really be watching and seeing how did these issues play out, abortion versus inflation. It certainly looks like the leaning in that the Democrats did on the abortion issue may well have paid off in a number of races.
Debbie Walsh, Director of the Center for American Women in Politics at Rutgers University. They are our partners in the She Election series. And again, we spoke on Wednesday morning. Up next, our midterm election wrap-up continues with seeing just how things shook out in the Peach State. That's right, we got Georgia on our minds. We head there next.
Support
Support for the takeaway comes from BetterHelp, connecting people with a therapist online for issues like depression and relationships. 25,000 therapists are available through BetterHelp using a computer or smartphone. BetterHelp.com/public. Support for WAMU comes from the Good Feet Store. Good Feet arch supports are designed to relieve plantar fasciitis pain by placing the feet in their ideal position. Test walk and fittings are available today at goodfeet.com. Southern Center for Human Rights, hosting their annual Frederick Douglass Awards Dinner, November 10th at the Willard Intercontinental. Tickets and details at schr.org/awardsdinner. Welcome back to The Takeaway. I'm Melissa Harris-Perry. In a repeat of their 2018 race, Georgia's incumbent Republican Governor Brian Kemp claimed another victory on Tuesday night over Democrat Stacey Abrams.
As you all know, there was a lot of people in high places who thought tonight's victory would never happen. But just like so many times before, you all and Team Kemp proved them wrong.
The state's highly competitive Senate race between incumbent Raphael Warnock and former football star Herschel Walker remained too close to call as of Wednesday morning. And here to talk with us about Tuesday night's election results in Georgia for our latest installment of Georgia at the Intersections is Maya King, politics reporter at the New York Times. Maya woke up early on Wednesday morning to talk with us after a long night of reporting. Let's start with the race that we know, where we know the outcomes. That's the gubernatorial race. It was a matchup that we've seen 4 years ago, and once again, the prevailing winner is Brian Kemp. What made this race different?
Well, first, you can look at the result. Tuesday night, Brian Kemp defeated Stacey Abrams by more than 7 points. That's about a 6.5 point margin wider than his victory in 2018. So, one, he was working with the power of the incumbency. Two, it has been a far better national environment for Republicans, and that's true still in Georgia. And it's really, I think, a reflection of voters' willingness to put him back in the governor's mansion, because they were relatively pleased with the last 4 years under his leadership. Stacey Abrams, though, made her campaign a lot about his last 4 years, saying that low-income Georgians and Georgians of color would suffer under a second term. It's true that a majority of Georgians of color still did support Stacey Abrams' rematch campaign, though it still really wasn't enough for the coalition that Brian Kemp was able to build, and again, just for the campaign that he ran that was really focused on his incumbency, on the economy, and on the conservative policy wins of the last 4 years under his leadership in Georgia.
Abrams said on Tuesday night, so she conceded. That was another difference this time. Again, much larger margins. She did not concede on election night back in 2018. She did concede and said that she will continue to fight for the people of Georgia. Do you have a sense of what is next for Abrams?
I do not have a sense. I have not heard or nothing has been confirmed to me around what she'll do next. A few theories, though, have been floated to me. One of them is perhaps the Fair Fight and Fair Count organizations that she founded in 2018, growing in size and becoming national organizations to create more competitive battleground states in the Deep South or other places where there are a lot of Democratic voters, but they might not necessarily feel motivated or even able to vote. A lot of people that I've heard who are Abrams allies or who are just really rooting for her have said that was one option they'd like to see.
It's almost impossible to overstate the effect effect of the work that Stacey Abrams has done in the state of Georgia, right? Regardless of coming up short for the gubernatorial race twice. I'm wondering also, based on what you saw last night, and we're going to dig into the Senate race in just a moment, but just based on what you saw overall last night, is Georgia now truly a purple state?
As you pointed out, there's no question the impact of the work that Stacey Abrams has done in Georgia and what that means for Democratic candidates. However, I think what we also saw on Tuesday night, every Democrat running statewide, other than Raphael Warnock, lost their race. So Republicans, it would seem, still have the upper hand in statewide races in Georgia. However, the electorate looks very different. There are still wide openings now for Democratic candidates to run and win for major office, as we see with Raphael Warnock. However, it's just not as cut and dried. This is clearly not the same kind of decisive win that we saw in 2020 with a president taking the state by, a Democratic president taking the state by a very narrow margin, and of course, 2 Democratic senators winning. Here in Georgia, as of Wednesday morning, we have pretty much an entire Republican statewide ticket now winning. But on the Senate side, things appear poised for a runoff between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. So the work that Abrams did certainly cleared the way for Warnock to be able to be successful or at least get this close. However, I just don't think it's as cut and dried as perhaps we thought.
Let's dig on this for one more moment before we turn to this still up in the air Senate race, and that's to ask about the ways that you either did or did not see the national Democratic presence in Georgia this time. So I'm wondering, I'm not far from Georgia, just a couple states up in North Carolina. It did feel like there was a bit of a less of sort of overall mood and focus around Georgia this time than either in 2020 or in 2018. Hard to tell whether that was just sort of where I was situated, or if in fact there was sort of less investment by not only the Democratic Party, but by sort of the big Democratic donors, 501c4s, that kind of thing.
Oh, well, there was absolutely investment in Georgia, particularly by Democratic donors. I mean, Raphael Warnock was one of the highest fundraising candidates of either party in the country. And of course, Stacey Abrams remains a fundraising juggernaut.
Maya, pause for me just one moment. We're going to be right back with more on Georgia at the Intersections.
Comes from BetterHelp, connecting people with a therapist online for issues like depression and anxiety. 25,000 therapists are available through BetterHelp using a computer or smartphone. BetterHelp.com/public.
On the next Fresh Air, Steven Spielberg. His new film, The Fabelmans, is semi-autobiographical and is based on Spielberg's childhood and teenage years, when he fell in love with movies and began making them. It's also about his family and his parents' divorce. Join us.